We're here with Esther Ling from Grand Prairie, Alberta, Canada. Good to
Hello.
see you, Esther.
Yeah, good to see
And
you.
you are a singer-songwriter, new into that world, but a lifelong pianist. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your background? Like, how did you get to where you are today?
Started out in piano music. I was just like any other child, and I started playing at the age of 6. I really liked the piano, and so I had taken private lessons all throughout my youth, and I did through the certificates and exams,
Mhm.
and did recitals and performances back in my youth. And then I stopped because
Yeah.
life got in the way. I had to grow up and be an adult, and I actually took music lessons in Asia. That's kind of where I was born and
Oh,
raised in
yeah.
Asia. Yeah. So
Where in
then
Malaysia?
we're in Malaysia,
Yeah.
Kuala Lumpur itself. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I lived in
Yeah.
Singapore for a year. So
Oh, nice.
yeah, it's right there. And
Yes,
Singapore is this little tiny dot that should be part of Malaysia, but it's not. And so you're
used to be.
used to be
Yeah.
Kuala Lumpur. That's cool. So you were born in Kuala Lumpur. You're a Malaysian citizen still?
Yes. Yeah. I came to Canada to do the high school diploma. And then from there, I applied into university and I actually ended up being an engineer. Like engineering is actually my
Oh, wow.
my trade, I guess. Yeah. Yeah.
Let me ask you then in Malaysia they use the British system, right, for
Yes.
education. I mean, I'm in the US, we're different, but we have to be different. So you you finish at age, I mean, sorry, you go to grade 8 and then you have exams, right?
Yeah.
Is that what? And then the exam, how old were you at that point?
I was 17.
So you said, okay, then you could go like different tracks, right?
Yeah.
Like university. And so you applied to go to university in Canada. Is that
Yeah.
okay?
Yeah.
So you go into the engineer, so you go into the engineer world, which is quite different than the arts world, right?
Yes. Very, very
It's
different. So I did schooling in Edmonton, Alberta,
right.
and did the whole 4 years of college there, and then I actually worked for a few years as a professional engineer as well. So
Oh,
the
well.
music scene, like in terms of, like I still played the piano as a hobby, like
Mhm.
as a hobby and stuff like that, but it was nothing,
Right.
professionally driven at that point because I had a different career. But I finally came back to it when my young daughter at that time, was interested in learning piano. So I told myself, since I was a stay-at-home parent, I was like, like I could teach her. I have all the skills and I
Yeah.
have the knowledge, and I was like, I will teach her.
Right.
And that's kind of how it all started, to kind of click. And I'm like, okay, I could get back into music. And then at that time, we had already moved to Grand Prairie, Alberta, and so the neighborhood that we were in, there was a demand for a piano teacher. So
Okay.
then I started to teach privately from home to children. And then I realized, as I was teaching, I was like, I never really got the chance to bring my music education further. And then I decided to go back to the local college
Okay.
here to do music because they had a music performance diploma. So yeah, it was a 2-year program. So then I applied into that. I did the audition, and I
Yeah.
had to audition two. Yeah, I think they required two pieces. So I did two piano pieces,
Yeah.
classical pieces, and yeah, and basically I got into the program and just kind of
Hmm.
took lessons, and that happened for a year. And yeah, in right about towards the end of the year, that's when the bad news occurred where they were gonna close the program.
So you weren't able to finish the program?
I was fighting for my rights to complete, and so
Right.
I brought that to the table, and I'm like, look, like this is unfair, right? Like
Right.
I need to finish. Like you're leaving me hanging here. But I think my point was like, I'm not 19 years old anymore where I can just move and go to a university and pick up and where I'm left.
Yeah, you're
I have
in. Yeah.
I have a
And Alberta
family
is
here.
anywhere in Alberta is not close to any other music. Yeah, there's not a lot of music school education
Yeah,
opportunities.
that's
Yeah.
right. And I mean,
Yeah.
they had great offers. They're like, you could go to Edmonton to Grand MacEwan University, and we will pay for your, you know, year of tuition there, or like
Wow.
we'll subsidize or whatever. Like they were coming up with things that were great, but it didn't suit me. Like it didn't suit my situation.
Right.
It was probably more suitable for my peers who were 19, 20 years old.
Yes. Yeah.
And so, yeah, so that's why I have a different alternative where I was going to complete my second year with just alternative stuff like online courses or performing in community groups, accompanying a local choir. Like I had to meet
Hmm.
certain hours as how the program was originally structured. I had to kind of go through that checklist with them, and from there, I'm actually still completing it. I have one last thing to complete
Yeah.
till the end of June here with the local choir, and
Okay.
then I'm done. And then they will
Yeah.
award me the diploma. So that's kind of
That's
where I'm at.
wow. So
Yeah.
so music's always been a part of your life and playing piano. What kind of engineer were you?
I was a
Or
chemical engineer.
came out? Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, that's
So
hard.
then I worked in,
Yeah.
I actually worked in a plastics manufacturing company in Red Deer.
Okay.
They had at the Joffrey manufacturing site.
Okay.
I was an engineer there for 4 years. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, I know a lot of
Operational
people.
engineer.
Yeah, I'm a music school dropout myself, and then I went to the University of North Texas, and they have a ton of music students there. But what's interesting is a lot of them who don't finish in music end up going into computer science, and I tell people this, and they don't understand. Like or they ask me questions like, "Well, how are they compatible with each other? One is very mathematical, and the other one is like arts, right brain, left brain." And I'm like, "Well, I don't know. I just know how to do both." But
Well,
but I think it's
it's sort
something.
of art, right?
But music is very like mathematical. I mean, at the essence of the 12 note scale, and there is a analytical nature to music that you have to know to,
Yeah.
and so you have that tool set that's there of understanding the theory and understanding just the function of playing the piano, and then you have the art part of it. But there are a lot of people who are in technical jobs that are actually artists too. So
Hmm.
yeah,
I think it all supplements, you're right. Like in some way, it balances out.
right.
Maybe that's why we seek one or the other.
Yeah, right. So
Um,
when you've finished that, do you want to go back into having a teaching studio, or well, now we can talk about your new endeavor, which is being
yeah.
you're going to be a famous singer-songwriter, which you have a website, and we'll put this in the notes here, but what's the website? If
The
people
website's estherlingpianist.com.
Okay, Esther Ling, and you can see everything about you there,
Yeah.
but you also have singles out on Spotify and then Apple Music too.
Yeah, they're on Apple Music, they're on YouTube
Yeah.
Music. I think Amazon
So
as well. Yeah.
right. So how did you get into, I mean, you're trained as a classical pianist and then as a kid, but how did you get into the singer-songwriter world?
I learned songwriting through the college here. Like it was a great thing. It opened up my world of creating because I have always been a creator as a child. Like anything
Yeah.
that I could create, even art. Like I would make things with my hands. I love painting. I love sculpting. I love building.
Yeah.
And at the piano, even though I was trained, I mean, the program's always you got to learn the classical stuff, but
Right.
it's because
Yeah.
of the classical stuff that I think it built my technical skills to be able to play pop music on my own. Like my teacher never taught me any of those things.
Uh-huh.
I just, it's just one of the things, when you're a teenager, like, in the 90s, like what we've got NSYNC, Britney Spears, like I was into all of
Yeah.
that. Right?
Yeah. That's
And
my generation too. Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I love
Yeah.
Taylor Swift too, like, yes. But
Right.
it's one of those things where I enjoyed playing, and I would just go to the bookstore and I would pick up a pop music book and I would just learn it on my own because I had the knowledge and the
Oh,
skills. And I would play it, And yeah, I
So that
basically
was back
experienced
when
stuff on my own. Yeah.
that was back when you were in Malaysia.
Yeah.
You would go get a CD of the latest, and then I mean, I'm a jazz musician. That's my background. So,
Oh,
and I had the
nice.
classical too. So, a lot of jazz is about ear training and
Yeah.
the transcribe and stuff. So, how did you said you would learn the tunes? It was a lot of teaching yourself to how to figure out the chord changes and everything.
Yeah,
Or
so because I could
yeah.
read music really well, like whatever that was on the pop sheet music, like I would
Right.
learn the melody.
Oh, so you would buy the sheet music for the song. Yeah.
Yeah, because they come
Yeah.
in books back then, right? So I would
Yeah.
like if I know the song, like I mean I orally like it's in my ear, right?
Right. Yeah.
So it's great because then I just learn the chords because they have the chord symbols and I was just like, okay, that's the chord, right?
Yep.
But I would improvise. That's the thing. I
Yep.
wouldn't play
Yeah.
what's written like literally because sometimes it was just too difficult for my level of reading, but I sort
Okay.
of get the idea. And then I
Yes.
just like kind of, yeah. So it was a mix of ear and reading, and I would just do like stuff on my own.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah,
Well, it's same with me. I mean, I was jazz trombonist, but then I played piano since I was a kid, and then but I knew the theory, and so I just started learning the voicings and everything. But
nice.
I know what you feel. I know what you're saying about the music being too hard because even now, my daughter who sings, she's had some like Broadway books with a bunch of songs in them, and then they have the chord changes, and then the staff music for the pianist, and I'm looking at it like, okay, I can read the melody, but I'm terrible at sight reading, so I'll
Yeah.
just read. But if I can read the chord, if there's chords in a melody, I can make it sound good,
Ah,
right?
yeah.
I
Yeah.
know I can make it sound more full and better than the written music. So,
Oh, yeah.
um, so you were doing this as a kid. What did your parents think about it? Were they supportive of all the stuff you were doing?
Well, that's a very interesting question because I
Yeah,
think, my parents were very supportive of my piano lessons. And, uh, I'd like to say that we weren't a very, well-off family in terms of, finances. So I think when
yeah,
my mom and dad said, if you're doing this, we're buying this piano because they didn't have digital pianos back then. It was all upright
right.
pianos.
Yeah,
We're spending, $1,000 on this piano. You're
right.
gonna do it all the way through. That's your commitment for like so it was
Yes.
kind of like this is the only thing you're gonna do, right? Like there was no
Yeah,
choice, there was no other choice for me. And I think, in that aspect it was good that I liked it and I went through it.
right.
But I think after that, like, when reality hits in terms of, you got to grow up, you got to have a job, that pays and is stable and whatnot.
Hmm.
And so music was not, music, at least at the higher level of education, was not an option for me. So I had to do something else.
You
Uh,
mean being able to become a professional pianist? And
yeah, kind
I
of
mean,
like,
it's just like a tiny percentage of people that can do that. I
yeah,
mean, sometimes I'll watch YouTube videos of these top pianists. I don't even remember the names, but these amazing people, and you're like, do you do anything else in your life except practice the piano? Because the amount of technical proficiency of the top pianists in the world is unbelievable. But
yeah. But even in the
yeah,
arts, I think my parents
yeah.
never wanted me to go into the arts, like in
Oh,
general.
really? Yeah.
It was just a stereotype, I think, and maybe it is still prevalent in a lot of cultures. I don't know much about it here in North American culture because I grew up in Asia, but at least in Asia, it's not something that's seen as a career that you
A
would want your kid
viable.
to go into.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah,
yeah. I mean,
yeah,
having lived in Asia, I know what you're talking about. I think it's it is the same here. It's just there's more variety, I think, in Western cultures as far as how people think of things.
yeah.
But there is definitely the mindset of get a job. But
Hmm.
if that means being a music educator, that might be fine. Or if
Yeah,
it means if you can get a job, but then most music, most musicians who get paid are really just kind of entrepreneurs where they get paid per or freelancers, and
yep.
that for a lot of parents is scary.
Yes, and I think the fact that I'm, a female too. Like I think that that also adds to the um yeah, the whole thing about not wanting me to be, you know, in the arts. So
Really?
it's just one of this. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. When I was in Singapore, I remember Singapore is like known as this food place, and KL too. But there's a lot of food, good food. But being a chef, I remember there reading some articles when I was there. They're like being a chef is not a prestigious job, like it is, like it
Mhm.
might be here in some ways.
Yeah.
It's just a job, and people make food, and so sometimes like you come from a different culture where, oh, you're a celebrity chef on TV, but they don't really have that there. So you went through that program, you learned, and you had the technical ability, but then now you're exploring a whole new side of yourself
Yeah.
with the singing. When did you get into being a vocalist? Is that just recently or?
I think for me, what really triggered songwriting and singing as something that I could do professionally, or even, you know, just to save up enough money to do a song project on for just my own growth and everything.
Mhm.
It was really when the music program closed, because um, it was so heartbreaking to see, you know, I mean, for me, it was heartbreaking as well, because it was my dream to come back into music, and then all of a sudden it you know, got
Yeah,
crushed again.
yeah,
But more so, for I was seeing my music instructors, like, you know, this was their life and their job, their whole, you know, career, all of a sudden
yes.
come to a stop, and but they're still showing up every day after, just to help us out, complete whatever that we need to complete for the term, because it was
Mhm.
announced in the middle of the term, and we still had to show up every day for lessons, and they had to show up for work, knowing that they're not going to be, you know, working
Yeah,
anymore
then
after
you're
this.
gonna get laid off, right?
Yeah, so I think, and that's where this song, the first song that I wrote, that I and performed, like at the
Yeah,
recital, at our last recital, I decided to perform it, and I don't think anybody knew, because this was a surprise. I wanted to give it as a gift to my teachers,
yeah,
um, and I think a part of me, you know, like felt like, you know, yeah, I could do this. You know, this was something that I enjoy doing. I was really passionate about it. It was born from my heart,
yeah,
and you know, it was something that I felt, you know, proud of, at least,
yeah,
that
yeah.
I was able to share a part of my music skills to bring healing to people.
Right.
And that's a big thing for me. I think, you know, for me growing up in music, um, it's very healing for me,
Mhm.
and to be able to connect that with other people. And I think that's when I realized, you know, this is, maybe this is what I can do. So from there, I performed it at the last recital, and then after that, we also had an alumni, like a big group of musicians, just coming back to do music, like a concert. Like we put out
Yeah.
an alumni concert, and I sang it again and performed it on stage, for the community that was there, right? So it was just a whole new experience for me, and you know, and I'm still learning. Like I said, I'm very early in my songwriting, um, and so I'm really excited to see where it all
Yeah.
grows. Like I don't lock myself to a specific genre. Like I'm, even
Yeah.
though I really enjoy ballad style kind of writing,
Right.
slower kind of music. But I do write jazz. Like I wrote some jazz, like kind of standard form,
Yeah.
and I write, yeah,
Yeah.
pop ballad music. Like so, yeah, like things like that. I'm just kind of still kind of exploring and learning.
So, I like to ask people about auditions because that's what we do at Snap. But going back to, your childhood when you started doing classical piano, all that, a lot of rote learning, and did you have any audition experience when you were young, auditioning for things or doing performances where you were assessed and things like that?
Not so much for when I
Mm.
was young. I mean, I did
Yeah.
the conservatory exams where you just go in and you're assessed right there
So
with the
you
examiner. Yeah.
and that how often did you have to do that?
I think I did let's see, I did grade 1, grade 3, grade 5, and then grade 8. So
Okay.
I didn't do for every grade because there's
Right.
no requirement to do for every grade. It's wherever you're ready. So when my teacher says, yeah, I'm ready for, this level, whatever exam, and then we
Yeah.
prepare for it and then we sit and then I sit for it.
Do you remember what it was like as a kid, going in and I played piano when I was like, or I took lessons from like age 9 to 12 or something. But
Yeah.
I can remember like, oh, I had to put on a jacket and a tie, and I was like, I had to go in and
Yeah.
play it for some judge person.
Yeah, yeah, no, I
Yeah,
had to wear a dress, and
yeah,
I think that was the only happy part that I would be looking forward to, was to wear a
it
pretty
is.
dress. But then
Yeah,
no, when I would go in, like it's so nerve-wracking. Like I almost every time I would feel like I almost have like a little bit of a diarrhea, almost like I just need
Oh,
to
your
go to the
stomach was
washroom.
and not. Yeah,
Yeah, so it's just so
yeah,
nerve-wracking. And I think it gets worse as I get older. Because I think as you get older, you get more conscious of yourself. Like I don't remember feeling that when I was 8 years old or when I was 10, but like when I was 17.
you can, the trauma comes back later.
Yeah.
Okay. You have these experiences as a kid where you're going through this very prescribed system, auditions. How did you change? What did you do as an adult teacher? Did you change any methods based on your experiences?
Yeah, I did because I
Yeah.
think, putting that into perspective, I would always make sure that when my students were preparing for festivals or
Okay.
recitals, right? I think festival is usually a more high pressure situation than recital, because recital, I mean, your family's there to watch you play.
Encourage you.
Right,
Right.
like
Yes.
festivals, like you have adjudication, right? Like you're being marked against something.
Right.
So I think I would always make sure that I spend time with the student talking about nerves, because we don't talk about it. Like
Yeah.
my teacher never talked about with me. It was just like, come to lesson, drill, 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 drill. You just got to make that part right. Do it 100 times.
Okay.
It's like almost like you're a robot, almost like you're just remembering what to do, and then you just got to like perfect it, and it'll be
Hmm.
great. But I feel like we don't talk about the psychology of the nerves. What are you thinking? How are you feeling? And I really learned this a lot when I first started with my teaching career, private
Yeah.
teaching career. I also took lessons on the side with another pianist
Okay.
online, and she was great. Like this, Dr. Sabrina Chang. Like her focus was on cognitive psychology, but she herself was a concert pianist,
Okay.
and so I learned a lot from her in terms of how, like even for me performing on stage, like what I had to go through. And she would teach me these things and methods to cope. And
Right.
so then I was like, this doesn't need to just apply to me. Like it can apply to children as well. Like, because I mean, it doesn't mean that the child doesn't talk about it. Doesn't mean that they're not
Right.
feeling it, right? Like even for my daughter, I would always say, like make sure you are aware of how you're feeling, because sometimes we try to push that away. And then when
Yeah.
you're ready to play, you know, things happen.
Well, yeah. Right.
Right?
It's a human.
But
We're
if you,
human. Yeah.
yeah, but I think the big thing is if you accept that you're feeling these butterflies, you are feeling this tingling in your hands, like it's a
Uh,
mindset thing, right? Like that I was taught, like you just got to accept that, okay, I'm feeling nervous, but it's okay, right? I'm feeling these cold fingers. Like you kind of
right.
got to have this little conversation in your head, like kind of just talk through what's going on, right? And I would also, in part of preparing a student for a performance, I would also make sure that they're practicing walking up to the bench, going onto the stage, taking a
Right.
deep breath. Like there's a routine that I teach my students to
Yeah.
do.
Of course. Yeah.
And because if you don't do that, and all of a sudden you're thrown into a room where it's different than the practice room, and if you don't have a routine practiced in your head, it could set you up for failure, like even as a
Oh,
student.
yeah.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
that was a big thing that I learned from Dr. Sabrina Chang, was that, having a routine helps. you get settled because it's all
Yeah.
part of the performance, especially for solo piano. I don't know if it's like that for every like band musician. You just
Oh
go out
yeah, of
there, just
course.
like
It's
jam
also,
and
of
just
course.
bring it,
Yeah.
right? Like
Yeah.
adrenaline rush. But I mean, how
And
did
anyway,
you learn how to
does
do that? Like, you
yeah,
know?
it doesn't even have to be music. It could be athlete. It could be yeah, it sounds like
Yeah.
in your system, the system you're in, and as a young person, it was that those things were kind of assumed that you were just deal with them on your own, probably.
Yeah.
And when we're not going to talk about them, but my guess is that a lot of kids dropped out or begged their parents to drop out because they had so much trauma from it, and we never saw them again. Yeah, like I'm trying to think
Yeah.
like, okay, if there was a time when a music school or whatever or didn't talk about, being psychologically prepared to perform,
Yeah.
then it's then the people that didn't have those issues probably the ones that succeeded more than others in it.
Yeah. And
Yeah,
I've always heard people say the more you do it, the more you get better at it. But what about the people who are just starting out that haven't
exactly.
had those experience? How do you get from that point to being, yeah, where you can just walk up on stage and just do your thing because you've done it 100 million times, right? So that's where I found a disconnect with, with me at least, learning as a child. And then with the experiences of learning with a master pianist, and even
Yes.
coming back to music at the college, like I mean, I have the exact same nerves and stuff, right? And I'm still learning. I'm still learning, to put that all together. The more I perform, and then now with the singing songwriting stuff, which is very new to me, I still get nerves, right? Like because you
Yeah.
you don't know, like, right? But it's all part of the process, and I definitely try to bring that, to my students as well. I feel like we don't talk about it as much in lessons, and you're going to 30 minutes to like work your pieces or even 1 hour for more advanced students.
Right.
But I make sure I have time to talk about it at least, right?
That's good because I think music education, it focuses almost entirely on playing music or composing music. Very, very little on actually performing, except giving people performing opportunities. Like
Yeah.
if you look at piano studios or band or school music or college, there are a lot of opportunities to actually play, but there's no training on how to be a performer. You brought up a good point about, oh, if you do it over and over and over and over, you get better at doing it because it's just rote, you learn. But at the beginning, how do you deal with all these issues that might come up, right?
Mhm.
Yeah, you're just you might be just frozen because, oh, I have to go out there and play something, even though I can play it 10 times perfectly at home.
Yeah,
So
and it is the expectation to be perfect, right? But there's
yeah,
no performance that is perfect. But kids don't see it that way because they're always like, oh my gosh, that's so great. Like, look at Taylor Swift on stage, like she's amazing. But like, does anybody
yeah,
see the work that she's
yeah,
put into practicing? Like all these people, Lady Gaga, like I mean, yeah, right? They've
yeah.
got
And they're
everywhere. Yeah,
right. They're in understanding the production side of it. You're
yeah.
not, there is no just Taylor Swift. That doesn't exist anymore. It's a
Yes,
production
it's a
of
team.
very professional people that have just the mastering and mixing of the albums, and then
Yeah,
the production itself is like 100 semi trucks of equipment and auto tune
yeah,
and all these other technologies to make ensure that the performance is the same. And
yeah,
if you don't know that too, it's hard to know what you're supposed to sound like. Like, oh,
yeah.
I just went to a concert. I saw Lady Gaga perform at this arena and it was amazing. What should I expect of myself? How am I supposed to sound?
There's just so many other aspects that's not just, learning how to play it well. Like there's also a lot of the mental stuff that we don't talk about.
Right.
And really
Yeah.
performance is mental because you're going on stage and you're acting, you're a performer. You are putting yourself in character and you're trying to be this something, right? Of the music
True.
and you're trying to communicate that to the audience. So then it's not really about you anymore, which I have worked with, a couple of students who have severe anxiety, very severe anxiety. Um, and, at some point I realized that I think what they're struggling with is they're always thinking that it's about them. And I have to
Uh-huh.
remind them it's not about you. Like
Uh-huh.
when you're on that stage, it's no longer, whoever your name is. It's the music that you have learned that's coming through you. You're just a vessel, right? Like you have the
Right.
skills, you've put work into it. But when you're on that stage, people are not. Yeah, I don't know. This is a weird concept to kids, but some
No,
kids
yeah.
get it, some kids don't. But yeah, like,
So
I
what
think it's
the
really,
kids that get it, what do you think? So you're trying to coach them along, say, hey, take yourself out of the equation, and try to take yourself in terms, you're not saying take yourself out, you're saying
yeah,
understand that this is not all about your reputation and how the world perceives you. It's actually about
yeah,
serving the audience with something. Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
So
kind of like that.
how do you think the kids that get that, what do they do differently when they get that? Like on stage, do they have a different routine? Do they, um,
I'm still trying to figure that out because I feel like
yeah,
some kids are just like, yeah, I'm just gonna play, and I think maybe that's what it is. They're just there. They know that they're just there, and they're just playing music that they like, of course, right? Like you have to like the music that you're performing. It's back
yeah,
to Rupi Kaur's poetry. Like, you don't play something that you don't like.
yeah,
Right? Otherwise, how are you gonna bring your best to it? So you have to
right.
enjoy it. You have to enjoy the art. You have to enjoy the process and everything. So I think the kids that have a little bit more control over that mindset is like, I'm going up there and I'm gonna enjoy playing the music that I like. It may not be perfect, right? Like there are tips and stuff like that
And
we
they're
learn,
okay with that.
cover and everything, and they're okay
Yeah,
with that. And then they walk
yeah,
out the performance, they're like, that was really great. Because at the end of the day, I'm like, the audience will clap for you. Like you did
yeah,
your best, you brought your best. I mean, these are kids,
yeah.
right? Like, I don't want to give them the pressure of, like, when you're at a concert, like, I mean, like late Taylor Swift, if like something really bad happens, like that's really, really high pressure to like
Yes,
pull
there's
it
a lot of
together,
money
right?
involved, and
But I'm
yes.
like, you are in a recital and you're learning and you're young and, enjoy it. And that's what I tell my students, when you go up there, you are an actor and performing, you enjoy the music, how you like to play it. Like let
Right.
go of whatever that I told you in lesson.
Yeah. I think sometimes when I hear and this maybe gets too much into mental health, and I'm not a licensed therapist. We get too much into telling people, well, just practice and practice and like you'll get over it, or stop thinking that way. But the problem is that if you really have anxiety issues, whether they're like deep-rooted anxiety that you're going to have to deal with as a person, you have anxiety disorder, or you just have situational anxiety, it doesn't really work that way. You don't just get rid of feelings. Like
No,
you
yeah,
actually, what you do is you channel the feelings, or you find a way to live with the feeling
yeah.
and still do it. You don't just get rid of them. But I think sometimes I hear too much from people who really never had stage fright, or they didn't really deal with it that much, and they're the ones giving advice to everybody else. So yeah, I mean that, and also believing people. I think, well, mental health has been awareness of mental health has been on the rise for years, since
Yeah.
COVID especially. I think that's great because it's like now we're kind of more believing people's feelings, that, oh, it actually might really be really traumatic for you as a 10-year-old to get up in front on a stage and play something.
Yeah, yeah. And
And
I think as artists, we just get so much pressure, more than anybody else, because all eyes are on you.
yeah, so what's the next part of your life look like with being, do you want to release an album? Do you want to, get out there and play gigs?
I think for me, as a pianist, I'd really like to do more gigs for sure. Because the music that I play as a piano player,
Yeah.
I enjoy pop music. I do. I really do. And I also maybe want to work on bringing that into the medical care side of things, where
Oh,
the
well.
music brings healing to people. Because the music that I play mostly is soft ballad style music or whatever, right? I don't know if you've listened to Pink Walls, but
Yeah.
it's a song that talks about um domestic violence. So violence, trauma that a child has grown up with,
Hmm.
and it's reliving that memory through the song. But the
Yeah.
song's message is a message of hope because it, the character of the song returns home to paint over the wall of unhappy memories with the hope of starting fresh. Yeah, so that
Wow.
Pink Walls is a song that seeks to bring awareness on domestic violence. And I wrote it
Wow.
from, I didn't write it from the perspective of the victim,
Hmm.
like in this case, the domestic partner. I wanted to write it from a child's perspective because, I mean, we all were children once, and we've seen, parents fight, and there are unhappy memories and stuff like that. So I kind of bridged that into a story, and to know that these things aren't talked about in public. They aren't. They really
Yeah.
aren't, right? Like, you're within the
Yeah.
walls of a home, you do not know what happens inside the walls of a home.
Right.
So that's kind of how I came up with that idea of, walls, painting over the wall to erase an unhappy memory. And yeah, and I thought to write a song about that.
So it sounds like to
Yeah.
you it's very important to write and perform music that's very contemplative, and that it like comes from your soul,
Yeah.
not just it's not just fun to play, but it's a really expression of you and your experiences, your thoughts on the world.
Yeah, and it also connects to a personal experience. I had two friends who were domestic violence victims,
Hmm.
and it was heartbreaking because they had young children, right? So
Right.
yeah, back to that, connecting to wanting to write it from a child's perspective, because the stories that I was hearing, like, I would receive a call, and like, it's heartbreaking because you can't do anything to help. As a friend, I didn't know how to help, to be honest. Like, I was, and being far away, I could only listen, um, maybe give some advice of what she can,
Right.
seek help somewhere else, like everything
Yeah.
just through the phone. But just hearing her, what she was going through and what the kid was going through, the kid was changing in his behavior, and stuff like that. Like, it was just really heartbreaking, to know, right? And a lot of times, when you're a victim, I feel like when you're in that situation, it's really hard to escape, because it is family. Like, you're trying to decide if you're wanting to stay, or you're
Hmm.
wanting to fix it, or should I fix it, or should I leave, for whose, happiness. Like, you're in this state of questioning for a long, long time. So I decided to, write a story about that.
That's amazing. So,
Yeah.
and everybody can check it out on so search Spotify for Esther Ling, Ling, and that
Pink
song is
Wall.
there, and the other single you have, and Apple Music. Where
And
else can
Apple
they find
Music,
it? Yeah,
YouTube Music, Amazon
YouTube.
Music. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
those
the
two songs. Make sure to subscribe, follow, do all that stuff.
yeah.
Go to your website, estherlingpianist.com, right? .com.
Yes, Esther
Yeah,
Ling.
and see everything that's going on with you. It's been great talking to you and hearing about your story. Good luck finishing your school.
Thank you so much, Eric.
Thanks, Esther.